Hi everyone, today I wanted to take a look at something a little bit different. So this is Line War, a game that was recently part of the Steam Next Fest, and as far as RTS games go, I've never played anything quite like it. If anyone else has, please let me know in the comments below, as I'm curious if it is truly one of a kind. What sets it apart from other RTS games, I hear you ask? Well, you don't give individual unit orders, or attack orders for example. You draw commands as lines, at least when it comes to ground forces and ships, and we'll take a look at that in more detail in the game itself. And then aircraft, you have more of a patrol or an attack zone thing going on, along with the ability to target down specific structures for bombers. Something else that's not too common in RTS games is the fact that maps are firstly not only randomly generated, but are designed to be asymmetrical, because you choose your starting location, you don't get randomly placed. And even the way you pick that location is really well thought out. Both players, or more in the final game, get to pick at the same time. If they're too close together, the entire area becomes red, so no one can pick that ideal location. This will continue until all players have a starting location that are split away from each other. But let's hop into a sandbox game so I can show you all of this in action and show how the mechanics of it actually work. Well, welcome to the map screen of Line War. This is kind of important, so we'll start here before we go into the sandbox game. You've got your map, it is randomly generated. You can copy the world seed and reuse it. You can click random to bring a new one up, which we'll do in a minute, but let me just run you through the map. As you can see, it's asymmetrical. The two sides are different. Both players could spawn on one side. You wouldn't know if someone chose up here and someone chose down here, but you're wanting to pick an area with certain characteristics. Mountains, they're good to aid defense. It slows units down that are trying to go over them, so if you build defenses at the other side or like on top of them, it makes it a little bit more defendable for your units. Then there are choke points like here, where there's narrow bits of land. That sort of thing's important as well. Now the other thing you'll notice are the areas on the map have these little icons in certain places. So these icons here are fuel points or energy source points, and that means that you can build something that will give you power, and vehicles, ships and aircraft require power to keep moving and to engage the enemy basically. Then you've got these ones which are towns, and then you have towns with a little symbol here which is a dock, and docks again increase your income. They're used to trade. And then up here you can see you've got a different type of town. This is a city block. So if you build a town on there and then build factories on all of these factory positions up here, or mining positions, it varies from place to place, but there are mines, there's farms, etc, etc. It's the same building that goes on them all, but the point is you build all three of them and then you can upgrade the town to a fully fledged city, and that gives you a massive amount of income. As you can see, this isn't balanced. Only one area of the map has a city. This side doesn't have one, and down here doesn't have one. But that said, having just this little area of land isn't enough. You really need to control one of these big areas, and then that would be a secondary thing. Let me hit random and you can see what happens when you change that over. There you go. Completely different map, very different. Now you've got two biggish land masses next to each other with a little bit joining them. You can move units across the water, and we'll get into that when we get in the game. Obviously you've got a smaller landmass here. Now, and I was about to say there isn't a city, but there is one down here. But again, there isn't one at the other side. There's just the one city. So, you've got to think, where would you want to build your main forces? Where do you want to start off from before you capture the territory? Let's stick with this map. It doesn't really matter. We're just going to demonstrate how this works. So, we're including the picking phase, which is important, and we'll be able to choose as both the players in this game mode. So if I click ready, and first we'll start as player 1, and we will choose somewhere in the middle. So as you can see here, if I zoom out, I know it says waiting for server. It does try to connect to a server. We can zoom in. That's a town and that's a dock, just to give you an example. And then these circular areas are the fuel sources. or energy wells they're called specifically, and you can get energy wells in the water as well. And there's another little town. But basically, you have to start by picking a territory. So let's just make an example of when it doesn't work. So if I choose that one, and then I switch to player 2, I know that I've chosen that. So I'm going to choose this point here. Ah, now no one can have that area. Okay, you're too close to the enemy. So that's now blacklisted. So let's have a think. I know that there's a city down here, so maybe I would prefer to come here instead. But then if I switch back to player 1 could do the same thing, and then that entire area is a no-go now. And that will keep happening as long as you keep putting stuff down in the same area. So someone's got to sort of surrender and go the other side. You have to be a certain distance away. Now, let's just say for now, we'll go here, and player 2 can go over here. Now, you get a countdown, and you're allowed to pick another 5 areas. So if we switch to player 1, you want to pick areas that are maybe spread out. They have to be adjoining. You can pick water areas if you want. And I'm too late, so I only actually got 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you pick a water area, you don't get a squad of units. You'll notice I clicked there. Clicking immediately puts down a circle which pulls all the units towards it. We don't actually want to do that, so you can click on it and just hit delete. Though these guys will continue that command for the time being, though they're slowing down. Now, the main aim here is to capture points. So you'll notice down here, there is an engage directive. And right now it is set to attack and capture. You can change that to attack. You can change it to attack, fast move, so with haste. Or you can change it to conquer. Now you have different points. You have a point command, which is what we just saw. You have a line command, which is more of a defensive line. And then you have a path command. So if we choose the path command and we get these troops to come down here, and you'll see it's already selected these guys and also the artillery piece. But we equally want some to go up this way. And then these guys could probably come this way and head down to the city. So you'll notice I have lines. Now these lines stay forever. So if I put down a building by going to F2 and I choose the barracks and I pop the barracks down here, that barracks will start producing those normal infantry immediately. And they will automatically come out and follow the closest command. So they will follow these guys down here, which isn't going to get them very far. But these guys will all now follow your orders. So they will follow their command all the way up here, and they will stop and capture all the points as they go. The more points you capture, the more income you have. You'll notice the income in the top right hand corner, much like you would have in other games. Usually the resources are at the top. There are plenty of units to choose from in the game. They're not all completely balanced perhaps at the moment. It's still in development. So you've got your infantry, you've got a commando. They have the ability to be paratrooped in via a transport plane. Again, we can show you that in a bit. Then you've got artillery, you've got tanks, you've got an anti-air SAM unit. Then you've got aircraft, you've got attack choppers, you've got interceptors, you've got strike aircraft, you've got bombers, and then you've got transport planes. And then you also have ships. You have landing craft, which are your transport ships to send units across the sea. You have your submarines, destroyers, missile ships, cruisers, and aircraft carriers, which are not yet implemented, so you can't see those. But I suspect they work in a very similar way to the airstrips, which we'll get to in a moment. There's also this at the end, but I'm not sure what it is, because if you hover over it, it doesn't actually tell you, but it looks like some kind of cargo ship. I assume that's for docks that connect to each other, so you can have, you know, a constant stream of cargo going back and forth to have additional income. If you've got the buildings, we can have a quick look through. So you get your barracks, you get your war factory effectively. You've got an airport, and then you get an airstrip. The airstrip acts like a landing place for aircraft. It can hold up to 5 air units. However, it can't produce them. It can only store them. You can build it within range of an airport, and that airport will obviously then supply it with planes. You can also build a shipyard, you can build a submarine pen, then you can build this. This is a launch pad for a ballistic missile. They are expensive, but not expensive enough. As we discovered while playing the game, you can actually build these pretty easily, and they are immensely devastating. They can wipe out your entire army in one hit. They can wipe out a base in one hit. They destroy buildings in one hit. They are really, really powerful and probably a bit too easy to get at the moment. Buildings wise, you have the refinery, which you can build on top of the energy wells. Then you have the power plants, which also provide power like the refinery. However, they provide less and cost a lot to sort of maintain. Then you have a depot, which connects to nearby refineries and power plants to store additional energy, because if you're going to move a lot of forces around, you will suddenly drain a lot of your energy. You then have industry, which can be built on mine sites, farm sites, and lumber mill sites, and those would be these here. This one only has farm sites, but other cities will have mining ones and also lumber mills. Then you here have a little town. We don't have anywhere to build one yet, but we will be getting there soon. And then here you have a city, which is what you can upgrade this to once you build all of these factories, or farms in this case. And then here you have the option of a port, which can be built next to some of the little towns like this one here. That's where you would build a port once the town itself is built. So that's all the units and buildings. Now I'm going to pause this here to some extent, and we'll fast forward to when I actually have some units built and things like that. Okay, so welcome back to the game. As you can see, I've got quite a bit of stuff down now. I've captured all these areas of the map, all the way up here, some of this here. I've also just put a couple of buildings down so that there are some units being built by my other side. I'm just going to delete that, and I'm just going to have all of the units for that faction move back down here, just so we get to see the missiles and stuff in action. Now, if I switch back, there are various commands you can do in this game. So the first thing I want to show off is the defensive line command. It starts off being one line thick, as so. You drag, you drop, all the units move to it. That's currently on a move command, so they're going to move to that defensive line. If you select D, or defensive, they will actually dig in. You see, they're not digging in with that command. If I draw that line again, if I delete that, and draw it again. You can even change the line, I should say, actually. If I do that as a defensive line, they will now move into position and start digging. They will dig themselves into a defensive position. This gives them, obviously, a defensive bonus. They're harder to kill. And this applies to all the ground forces. They can all put themselves in a much more defended position. You can also increase the size of that line to 2, or indeed 3. Like so. We don't need to do that for the moment though. The same applies for moving units. You can have a single line, as we've seen already. You can have 2 lines. You can have 3 lines. You can have 4 lines. Or you can have 5 lines. And that's perhaps if you're wanting to move a large amount of units all together, rather than just moving 1 or 2. And that applies to both the attack move command and the move command. Now, we've got various aircraft down here. One of the things I wanted to show you is if I click on an airport, do you see we have a green zone, a green ring? That is for helicopters. The helicopters, which are in this airport, can go all the way to where that green ring is. They cannot go beyond it. The blue ring is for fighters, the interceptors, and also the striker is basically your missile aircraft. Then you have bombers and transport planes, which can go all the way to the red outer circle. And that's why if I click on this, you'll notice there is an overlap. That because of the overlap here, anything I produce at these are able to move here. So you can build this, and as long as you build transport planes or bombers, you could build an airfield or an airstrip all the way up here. And whatever you build here will be able to fly there. The reason they choose where to fly is the aircraft profile. So if you click on an airport or an airstrip, you will see it has an aircraft profile. And it has different levels of preference, 3 to be exact. If you click it once, you get 1 level, 2, 3. If you put it to 3, it will attract as many of that aircraft as it possibly can. I'm just going to turn these shipyards off. You can tell your shipyards or your other production facilities what they should build. They could just build artillery, they could just build tanks, they could just build SAM, or they can build a mixture of all 3 as they are currently doing. The same goes for shipyards. Submarine pens only build submarines, which are these little guys here. They're obviously good against ships. Up here I've been building lots of transport ships. I have stopped now. Now, transport ships are quite clever. So if I go back to commands and I select all the units I would want to transport via transport ships, and I'll select that I want 3 rows of them. If I drag from here to here, it will create 3 lines, and these transport ships will go here, pick up as many troops as they can, and transport them across here. I can then tell all those units to move down here, and I can put them in a defensive line by clicking that, clicking defense. Perhaps I want 3 of them this time, and then I can just drag all the way along there, and then I can even go back to the old line and delete it. Now perhaps I change my mind and I don't want tanks to go in there. I can just untick tanks and it will deselect it from the options, or I can add tanks again. Other commands are, for example, these paratroopers here. So these are commandos. They can act as paratroopers. To do that, you select those and you select your transport aircraft. Then you select a point command, and then you find something that is going to be within that red circle's range. I'm not sure they will make it to the enemy. Let's double check. Oh, they will get over there, so we can just do it to that side. So let's do that. If we go back here, we can see we've got those selected, and then what we'll do is just click there. Now you'll notice aircraft symbol and paratrooper symbol. That means that they will pick up paratroopers, take off, and drop them there. Now, I'm not sure those guys are quite in range, so what I'm going to do is just make sure there is a line going from there to there, so that they will fill up these aircraft and be utilized as paratroopers. You'll notice I've got various units here now, and these guys are slowly forming a defensive line, hopefully. See, they are slowly realizing that they can pull this way, hopefully. Oh, I've accidentally changed this by having it selected to just use those 2. That was my fault. That's the thing, you have to be careful what you're clicking on. It is very easy to misclick and change a previous command. There you go. Those guys have paratrooped in. And you can put them in a defensive line. You can have them attack something. Now for your other aircraft, we can deselect these guys because we don't need those at the moment. And we can say, well, I've got attack choppers, I've got interceptors, and I've got bombers. And I want to send them all to attack the enemy here. And all of these will now take off and fly over here and provide sort of a mixture of air defense in terms of the interceptors. The bombers will attack the targets that they can see there, and the helicopters will do the same. Now, the issue here is that point is just outside the helicopter's range, so I need to move it. But you cannot relocate active air units, so you have to delete the command and start over. So I'd have to do that and then pop it back down. And now those guys will take off because they're within range. If you zoom in, you can see that these guys are all digging in. They're getting really defensive. And those units will continue to transport every time something else comes across. So you can actually continue to do that. If I select all those units still, and then I draw a movement line to here, they will all be picked up, and then we'll move, and then they will transport across and reinforce these lines. Here's our attack choppers. The enemy don't have any SAM, so they won't shoot them down, but these guys will just attack as they see fit. And this is the basic premise of Line War. It is a much slower based RTS than many that I've played, to be honest. It feels a lot more relaxed, and yet the combat is a lot more stressful at times because you can be very quickly overwhelmed. You can see here that machine gunners and things will fire at the aircraft if they're right above, so they will do damage. You can see the strategic bombers dropping their bombs. There is no health here, so you can't see how much health the target has. There are no health bars. So that's basically showing off the bits of the game. You can see here we have our city built, we have our farms, we have our dock, we have another dock up here. If you click on the dock, you can actually see here you do have the option of having the merchant ships, so you can hover over it there to see exactly what it is. Now, the one thing that I want to show, now we've sort of seen the majority of the bits, I'm going to show how devastating this missile is. It can be shot anywhere within the blue circle, which is obviously quite a long range, and I can drop it right in the middle of the enemy here. Off it goes. I believe you can shoot it down, but I'm not certain. But it is devastating. It will probably kill my choppers. Yeah, there go my choppers. Even killed the trees. But you see how powerful those are. They're not that difficult to build. But, you know, I could go into the detail of all the units, but I won't in this video. It's just to give you a general gist of the game. Combat is the same. So you draw your combat line, your attack line, and units will engage each other. So if I delete this, and then I have all of these selected, I can click that, I can click the move command, and I can just drag across here. And all of these units will now move across here and engage anything they come across. So there are a couple of tanks left, there are infantry still being built, and these units will gradually move across. And I can speed them up. I can click that. That 30% extra speed boost. And they will move along and engage the enemy. And if you want to get past an enemy defensive line, you can even switch that to a move command. If you click it, have it selected, and switch it to a move command, it means that they will keep moving even when they see enemy units. They won't stop to engage. They will keep moving to get to their destination. They will still fire on the enemy as they go past if they can. But their intention is no longer to stop and engage. And then you can switch it back, and they will stop and engage anything they see. Some units can fire on the move, others can't. Little machine gunners, they can't. Tanks can. But that's a basic overview of how the game works. It's all about lines. And in some case, points. But It's such a unique take on a strategy game. I've really enjoyed playing some little games of it. My only complaint is it is quite slow paced. I wish it was a little bit faster, and obviously things need a little bit of rebalancing because those rockets are way too powerful. Because they can just decimate your entire force in one foul swoop. And it's, you know, difficult to split your forces up sometimes when you're attacking a thin piece of land or something like that. Well, that was a brief overview of Line War. Do check it out on Steam. The demo is still available. Give it a go. See what you think. Let me know in the comments down below, because I'm quite curious what other people think of this game. I think it's a really interesting take on an RTS. I like that you can't necessarily control everything individually, and you have to sort of plan more large-scale maneuvers. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all soon for another video.